territory that we're on, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. So just a bit about me. My name is Jocelynn Rodrigues, and I'm formally trained as an accountant and also in permaculture design. And I'm really interested in the intersection between the two. And I feel like there is more capacity to be merging those two fields, as they are currently quite separate. And just by virtue of being a human, I'm passionate about the earth that we are living in and everything that's on it, and have a strong passion to care for it because it's something that I love. So I'm going to talk to you today about the Vancouver Fix-it Collective, which is a project that I started. But before I get into the nitty-gritty of the Fix-it, I just wanted to start with a story. It involves an electric tea kettle and some tinkering in a country that was not my own. And actually, I hadn't really thought much about this experience until quite recently, when my friend Skylar, who I met while traveling, told me that she missed me in her class not too long ago. And I was confused. Why did I come up in your class as she's finishing to get her Bachelor of Education in Ottawa? So I'm just going to share with you what she shared with me. I raised my hand and I told the class how we're failing at teaching our students practical life skills. And I mentioned how when I was living in Tanzania, our tea kettle wasn't working. And I went to you and I said, yeah, it looks like we have to put out the cash to buy a new one. And then you opened it and you tried to fix it. And in the end, you did. And it sounds so simple, but it blew my mind. I never thought trying to fix myself was an option. I was so quick to think, let's huck it and buy a new one. But honestly, that moment changed me, because from now on, I will always be the kind of person that opens the tea kettle up and at least tries to fix it. Though I don't blame myself for having not had that realization earlier, because I was never taught that I could try to fix something, and neither is this generation. I grew up with capitalism and materialism. Now, what specifically wakes us up is different for all of us, and I had no idea that my fixing this kettle would have creating this lasting impact on her, but it's cool to know that it did, and it inspires me further to keep doing what I do. It also reminds me that sometimes we think we have no impact, or we might not even be thinking about it in that specific context, but there are endless ripple effects that we can't even begin to comprehend, and I believe that reinforces doing what you love and doing what feels right. So I grew up in the world that she described too. A lot of us did, but it doesn't need to be like that. We can wake up from this, and a lot of us already are. Even more of us never even went to sleep. It wasn't too long ago that fixing was normal. And if you're from my generation, then your grandparents grew up with this, or even your parents, depending on their upbringing. And it's time, I think, to revive that fixer culture that's been hiding out. And luckily, that's already happening in many places. So starting with the Repair Cafe, which originally launched in Amsterdam in 2009, there have been many more derivatives since then. So there are, of course, countless environmental and social justice reasons to fix instead of throw away, but I don't really want to get into that so much, because I think that we already maybe understand the negative repercussions of tossing. The direct environmental ones, such as polluting our ecosystems, endless amounts of hazardous e-waste, to name but a few, and the seemingly indirect, while still very direct, consequences on a personal level of being disconnected to nature and to the items that we bring into our lives. And while I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge the negative repercussions of our automatic throwaway lifestyle, I think it's just as important, if not more so, to provide the space to engage beyond this one story, and to offer up alternatives such that we can begin to feel inspired into action, to remember what it used to be like, and to feel what it's like to reconnect. So for me, what I've noticed is that fixing provides space for meaning. It allows us to continue to tell an object story. When we fix, we slow down, and we engage with what we're fixing. As we take it apart, we learn how it was made, and we often feel a deeper sense of gratitude towards it. We begin to truly understand all of the resources, more aptly known as Mother Nature's gifts, that are necessary in order to get these objects into our hands. That, coupled with the understanding that everything is of the earth, is humbling. And I really want to emphasize that last part there, because there's a subtlety there that is often lost in our fast-paced lifestyles. That everything is of the earth. Everything comes from the earth because that's all that we have. For me, this evokes a deep sense of reverence. And when seen in this light, unconsciously tossing to buy new or not caring for items that come into our lives almost seems blasphemous, in direct violation of some sort of unspoken biological principle. So bringing back a level of consciousness then to our own actions and to the objects we engage with is not only important, but can be seen as an opportunity to give back, to say thank you, and to acknowledge and honor everything that went into making these items, which the price tag has never fully encompassed. When we fix, we allow these items to continue to weave themselves into our lives and our stories. And maybe when we no longer have a use for that item, we can pass it down to our children and more stories can emerge in just one fix. When you compare that to the current model of it breaks, we toss it, and we buy new, that current model just feels so emotionless and lifeless. As I ventured down this path, I started to hear more stories of my own family, of my grandfather, who, as my dad shared with me, was the town fixer on the island where my father was born, and of course where my grandfather lived, São Miguel, which is an island off the coast of Portugal. One example is this tool pictured here. My grandfather made this himself, and then he used it to fix broken ceramics around the island. Words cannot really describe the depth of meaning that comes from learning about one's connection to their past. But we are losing these connections at a time when we must be fostering them and providing spaces for them to happen before these skills are lost forever. By fixing, we take back responsibility for items we come into contact with, which in today's culture, being responsible for our stuff is revolutionary. We reclaim our independence, our creativity, and our inspiration, and we reduce, if not eliminate, our dependence on a system that currently has no regard for Mother Nature and only for the bottom line. And we wake up to what's truly going on. Lastly, I see fixing as a metaphor to the internal fixing that can occur on a personal level, such that we can be our best selves and reflect that out into the collective. So with all this in mind, Vancouver Fix-it Collective made intuitive sense to me. We launched in January and we've had 3 events thus far. In terms of the collective itself, we put intentionality into creating a safe space, and we strive to be an all-inclusive community. So far, all the events have been free, and I really want to keep that model going in an effort to challenge the assumption that it's cheaper or easier to toss and buy new. But I'd also like to point out too that fixing is beyond money. So no matter how cheap it might be to replace it, it's just not going to be the same as fixing. The sense of meaning and empowerment and relationships that emerge from fixing cannot be found with money. On that note, Vancouver Fix-it Collective is also a place where we focus not only on fixing versus tossing, but where we come together and we share our creative minds and let synergies emerge. Where we move away from the expert teaching other models, which is quite hierarchical and disempowering, to the co-creative, collaborative process of sharing together when we do know, and maybe if we don't know, we look it up. The Vancouver Fix-it Collective works best when we collaborate, and these are some of the people we've collaborated at with previous events. Long term, really hoping to collaborate with an already existing space to have monthly or semi-weekly Fix-it events that are ongoing so people know that it's going to be happening. And then super long term, I'd actually like to see the Fix-it Collective obsolete, in the sense that we would still, of course, be fixing, but that there would not necessarily be a need for this sort of structured fix-it event type deal, because we would have fully embodied fixing, and we would be fixing in our own homes or with our neighbors when things actually break, in the moment that they break or when the need arises. But until such time, I am definitely happy to be that bridge. So these are just some pictures from some of the events that we already had. This was the first one, and it was at Groundswell. And we also had Maker Mobile there, so we were able to offer up a variety of other fixes. And Maker Mobile is just right behind this curtain. If you haven't checked them out already, definitely do it up. The second event was held at Vancouver Hackspace, which is another organization that's here today. And this one was everything themed, because of course Hackspace has access to a lot of tools, so that was super awesome. So we were able to just, whatever people brought that was broken, we could come together and try to fix it. And then the third event that we had, it was back at Groundswell, and it was also textiles themed. And this one was a collaboration with Framework, which was started about a year or so ago. And it's basically an organization that works to challenge the textile waste that we are currently facing, especially with this sort of fast fashion mantra in today's world. And so looking at how to sort of upcycle textiles into new fabrics. So that was obviously perfect with textiles fixing, kind of went hand in hand. So how to stay connected, like us on Facebook. If you want to be added to the mailing list, just send an email to the email there, vanfixit@gmail.com. Our next event is in the works. Not exactly sure what day, but probably in a few weeks. And it's definitely going to involve some awesome collaborations. And if and when you're fixing in your own communities, if you could post what you fixed and share it using the hashtag #VanFixit, that'd be awesome, because then we can learn from you too and be inspired. And if you're interested in hosting your own Fix-It in your house or in a community center or whatever, and you're just curious how that might work, definitely feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy to help with that. And then lastly, the next time something breaks, maybe you don't have the right tool or you don't know how to fix it, I encourage you to just knock on your neighbors' doors, as I think you might be surprised at the relationships that emerge from that. And there's something really special that comes from just getting to know your neighbors. So that's all from me. I guess I'll pass it over to anyone if they have questions. I think you can come up to this mic here or just shout it out, but probably come to the mic. Thanks.
What's the most impressive or expensive thing that you've managed to fix through this initiative?
Good question. Impressive or expensive? I don't know. Anything we fix makes me excited, so I feel like I want to say everything. I don't know, like once at the first event there was this little speaker set. What makes me excited about this is that it was the simplest thing that needed to be fixed and it was about to get tossed. And it was like a Bluetooth speaker set type thing, and basically just where the cord at the back plugs into the actual machine and then goes to the power. Something inside had sort of come unsoldered, and so it was not like, everything wasn't connected, and it literally just required the tiniest bit of soldering, and then it was fine. So that was super cool. I think most things have been all about the same value. Like we generally fix, well, there's no generally because it just depends what's broken, but like for examples of things we have fixed, like power cords, a headlamp, like someone brought in a pot for the kitchen, like the handle was kind of messed up. Someone's guitar needed to get like re-glued. At the event we had at the Hackspace, there was a guy that brought in a big mixer, like for DJing or whatnot. That was probably maybe the most expensive one, but it was, that was like a massive fix-it project, and so some parts of it got fixed, but it wasn't completely fixed yet, but the guy was determined to fix it, which was awesome. I liked his energy with that. Thanks for your question. Any questions? Cool. All right, well, if you do want to ask any others, just you can send me an email or find me on Facebook or flag me down. I'll be hanging out here today for the rest of the day. So thanks for listening. Have a good rest of the day.